Hey, fight fans. Christian here for Talkin Fight from the Friday night panel with another episode of the Olympics. So where we take a look at all things going on leading up to the games, and we take a look at some of the fighters that we're going to be seeing during the games. Sorry I missed you guys on Friday and yesterday. I know I left you in good hands with Graham, who unfortunately is unable to be with us today, but we will press on regardless. So for the hometown fans, we've had some interesting news recently. We're getting, as we get closer to the actual games themselves, to a point where we have a lot of athletes who are training overseas at different various training camps for various disciplines, and some of these are now people are now coming home, but to finish up their training before moving on to Japan. Now, the issue that they've had has been with obviously everyone else has been COVID-19 protocols. But just on Friday, the federal government of Canada approved travel exemptions for Canada's Olympic hopefuls, that it's going to allow them to train on home soil without undergoing a 14-day quarantine after returning to the country. So, the Minister of Immigration, Marco Mendicino, said in a statement on Friday that the government issued the exemption after reviewing a plan to create a modified quarantine training bubble, multiple training bubbles for athletes that was put forward by the Canadian Olympic as well as the Canadian Paralympic organizations and the Own the Podium Foundation. Mendicino says the plan contains significant measures to ensure the safety of athletes, coaching staff, and the public. Athletes and staff will still need to stay at a government-authorized hotel when they return to Canada, but once they've received a negative result for a COVID-19 test, at that point in time, they'll be able to join one of four modified quarantine bubbles, respectively in Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and Victoria, BC. Now, in that bubble, they're going to be restricted to their accommodations as well as official training facilities, and they will not be able to interact with the general public. Each bubble will have a compliance officer, and athletes and staff will be tested for COVID-19 at regular intervals. At this point, they figure that's going to be about every 2 days or so. Anyone who strays from the conditions set out for these modified training bubbles will be removed from training and then have to complete a standard 14-day quarantine. And at that point in time, could also be facing fines and or prosecution. He went on to say, we continue to monitor the COVID-19 situation around the world and base our decisions on science and the best data available, as well as advice from public health officials, as well as at the local, provincial, and federal levels. Protocols, now in a statement originally sent to the CBC, David Shoemaker, who's the CEO and Secretary General of the Olympic Committee, said in a statement that protocols for the bubbles were developed with a meticulous focus for health and safety. Going on to say, with little more than a month to go before the Tokyo Olympic Games, athletes are in their final stages of training, and the opportunity to access a safe training bubble that protects the athletes and their communities is incredibly important for their preparation. Now, earlier this month, this isn't the first time they've done this. So earlier this month, the federal government of Canada issued travel exemptions for National Hockey League players because of the playoffs that would allow teams to cross the border without a 14-day quarantine. That would be carrying on through the final two rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Players and staff are all tested and pre and post departure, as well as when crossing the border. And while in country, they are confined to their hotels and arenas, as well as same thing on the road on the other side of the border. Canadians, though, playing here are able to stay at home while playing teams from the U.S. Montreal Canadiens, who were the only team remaining in the playoffs, who recently hosted the Vegas Golden Knights. And now that was the only reason this is really significant, not because the Canadians are significant, because, well, you all know how we feel about the Canadians here in Toronto, but it does mark the first time that a U.S.-based team has been able to play here in Canada since March of 2020. So we are slowly starting to see, the borders lightening a little bit. We're starting to see some of these travel exemptions for our athletes. So we're starting to see how they're going to be moving from country to country, both in and out of Canada, as well as what we're going to be seeing in Japan. It's all very similar at this point in time. Moving on, though, let's talk about a couple of boxers. I want to introduce you to a couple of names that you're likely to see over the Olympics, well, you will be seeing over the Olympics, but guys to keep an eye out for again. We're starting off with the first of the hometown boys, not ours, but theirs, from Japan, Seiwon Okazawa. Now, he's a 25-year-old, was born in Yamagata, Japan, to a Japanese mother and a Ghanaian father. Now, he is the 2021 Korotkov International Boxing Tournament welterweight champion, and on BoxRec has an amateur record of 16 wins and 3 losses. He won the 2018 and 2019 All Japan Boxing Tournament and was second at the 2019 Asia Championships and among the top 8 in the World Championships. Okazawa won the 2019 pre-Olympic tournament to earn his opportunity to represent Japan at the 2020 Olympic Games. Saiwan Okazawa, who worked with Kanoya Gym's head coach Shunya Aratake, has been awarded the best elite man boxer of the year and was a quarterfinalist of the last edition of the AIBA Men's World Boxing Championships. And at this point in time, it's not only about his own career that he's looking out for, and he wants to be able to give back a little bit. This summer, he has claimed that he will be taking a break in his preparation for what he calls the home games to help repair the boxing gym in Kanoya that was damaged by flooding after torrential rains, saying that I want to give something back by helping to return the gym to its usual condition. And that's something that we see very the sense of community service in that is something that we very much do see among Japanese athletes. Anyone who think back to the World Cup, football or soccer, depending on your preferred nomenclature there. The last one that took place, we saw all these trashed locker rooms after the games, and then you saw the Japanese locker room where they had taken the time, they'd cleaned it, swept it, put everything into garbage bags, and left a thank you note at the end of it. So this sense of community is very, very prevalent among Japanese athletes, and it's something we'd like to see maybe a little bit more from some of the other athletes, but that's another story. Moving on, though, we're also going to meet today David Naika, who's a heavyweight fighting out of New Zealand. Now, David is a former Commonwealth Games champion and looks every bit the part at 6'6" and has a skill set to back it up. He trained with Joseph Parker and has won one professional fight for himself so far, and is taking advantage of the change in legislation to be able to compete at Tokyo as well. Naika recently told Radio New Zealand that the chances are the travel restrictions are going to cripple us. So getting a bit more variety is key for me, and just getting as much experience as I can leading up to the games. He says, I have 94 fights to date, and I'd really like to get to 100 fights before the Olympics, but that's unlikely unless I make it through to a gold medal match, which would be nice. So we see here another fighter who, again, is looking pretty good for these games. But we see, again, underlying some of the hardships that these guys are going through when it comes to finding international competition, be it, sparring partners or just friendly matches, getting to some of these training camps. And we've talked about this before, about how important variety is for these boxers. Because even if it's just a sparring partner, you're meeting people from different camps from around the world. You're coming up against different styles and can only serve to better you as a boxer in general. So when we take that away from these people, which we've seen that in a lot of countries where we've got some people have been able to travel. We've got the Filipinos are in Thailand right now. The Indian team is in Italy at the moment, except for Mary Kom, who stayed behind to continue training in Pune. But there's a reason that we do these things, and when we take it away from these fighters, it becomes very insular, and your training can become insular, and you can miss out in a very big way moving forward. So hopefully this doesn't affect David too badly in the games to come. But we wish him and everyone else the best of luck. Keep an eye out for both of those fighters. And that's what we've got for today, looking around the rings. And I will be back tomorrow, hopefully with Graham, and that way we can get back to our regularly scheduled programs. But until then, I will talk. We'll see you soon, guys. Thanks for tuning in. That is if